So let's review, right? We're just putting a knee down, which I was doing first by stepping back. So we'll probably step back with the ball of the foot and then lower the knee. You can lower yourself to the knee rather than crash onto the knee, so you don't commit your weight to it. You just work here, and the hip folds and the knee bends, and then I'm on my knee. On the mats, you can kind of learn to do it a little bit less well because it's a mat, so it just didn't really bother me, but if I practice that, that could be the thing that hurt afterwards, right? So I want to feel like I have a little bit of control in the coming down, or I certainly aim for even more than that. And I could certainly much more easily do this forward. People find it easier to come forward into a lunge. Once I'm down, commit my butt to the other side, the outside of the down ankle, the knee side. So in this case, my right leg's down. Just commit my butt. And then just go how you go. I'm not trying to do some particular roll or fall or anything. I just want to be a whole person that gets up. Even if I get up this way, give me a hand, even if that's how getting up, I didn't get broken, right? So knee, commit the butt. If I want to take momentum out, I can just kind of pause here for a moment and commit the butt. Don't try and cantilever. Don't place the butt down where it's under control. Just commit. It's not that far. It's mat, and this is cushion too. I'm not falling on my hip, onto the side. I'm just committing the butt. So that's all step one.
One butt cone.
One butt cone, yeah. Step two is what you're doing now, kind of paying attention to what happens just before, maybe during, maybe as the butt hits, to my tension levels, which you might feel as tightness in the body, maybe a particular place or places, your breath, what happens to your level of fear or anxiety. Is there something that happens generally for you, or half of the time, or every time? That's what you want to notice, right? And so it really becomes this checklist in on the self, right? So try a couple more times without, hopefully this isn't too beating you up. It's right. So a big part of this is really just kind of trusting, this is what I call trust the butt. Like if I trust that, I'm largely down. The momentum's out, right? You're now a half-height person who's falling. So you're not falling from 6 feet. You're falling from 3 feet. And your butt starts it. So there's a cushion to begin with, right? So next step, are you guys kind of noticing? Do you want to feed any feedback? Or do you notice that you'll hold your breath, that something tightens, that there's a sort of mental
I
fear
am
a
holding
bit?
my breath.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm afraid of it now. I don't
Yeah.
feel it, but I think I am holding my breath as I...
Yeah. So what we want to do is feel, at the moment the butt hits, there's some shock. Now it'll be minimized depending, of course, depending on how you fall, but you could also have it raised by somebody slamming you down, but either way there's some shock when the butt hits. We're not a ball where there's no shock from point to point. But after the butt, it becomes more rounded. So that initial shock, let me borrow you for a second. We'll just fake this, right? We would imagine if I did that, here's an inhale then. Even untrained, we would expect that if I land, that he begins an exhale. Similarly, if I pulled his leg or slapped him in the face or threw him to some sort of shock, it's going to signal the body exhale. Does that kind of make sense? So thanks. So sometimes I'll teach, I'll just hit the guy. Like, yeah, see, look at that. So luckily you just acted it out well. So when you do the sit, notice how the body wants to begin an exhale as if the butt is a button. like release the air. Like the moment the butt hits, you want to exhale. If you don't exhale, it's you deciding to do something else or not do something, even if it's kind of non-conscious, that decision. And so what we want to do is tune into, here's what the body wants to do. It wants the breath to go out. So what I want to do is harmonize or coordinate those two things. When the butt touches, which is a little bit of a little bit of this, notice that, that's when it just, let it come out. It probably wants to come right out the mouth, right? So try it a few times and think of the butt as a button, right? I don't mean create it or program it. I'm just saying notice that that's kind of the operating system you come with. Just sort of commit the butt. Once you start to feel that it is what it wants to do, you can coordinate that breath so it comes out, over a period of time or smoothly or what have you. But the fact of the breath leaving is really just what the body wants to do. Kind of makes sense? Yeah. We're right here at the start of autumn, but we're definitely looking forward at the season where there are going to be wet leaves. There is going to be ice that you don't see. There is going to be slippery snow. There is going to be wet tiles in the store you're stepping into and you're not paying attention. You know what I mean? There are many reasons to fall, and this is kind of easy. It's matte, it's under supervision, we're doing it nice and gently, and it might be much more involved, but if you get a bit better here, it can make a big difference when you actually fall.
Is it any different if you begin the exhale on your
Earlier.
Yeah,
Or you may
for the
run
button.
out. I want the button. Yeah, I want the button. Yeah. My teacher taught this system that had 30,000 techniques or something. What if the person's a Libra, but they're ambidextrous, and they hit you on a Saturday? Well, here's the technique. And so out of every technique he knew, he would always say, and this came up over and over again, he said, the most likely thing you're ever going to do is need to know how to fall.
Or know how to use your decoder.
Yeah, like out of everything that I have, that's what everybody's going to go through a windshield, over the handlebars, on the roller skate, down the steps, whatever it may, everybody's going to fall. Because we're in the middle of this grand bipedal experiment. You are going to fall. Hopefully you fall less often because you're doing Tai Chi and stuff like that, and you're a sensible, aware person, so you have good shoes and that kind of stuff. But still, you're still going to fall. Right? Everybody, your Tai Chi teacher has fallen, his Tai Chi teacher has fallen. That's what I've fallen, that's how it goes. But if we can not insert our own fear and confusion and bracing and a defense about the fall itself, in that moment, I can actually have a better shot at falling well. So I'm relaxed and soft and round, and the best outcome will be mine. I can still get hurt, I don't want to fall, right? But if in this moment, this is the moment about here where I'm committed to falling. But at this point, if I try and stop it sort of psychologically in terms of my breath, in terms of my muscles, I'm making the fall less easy to come out of well, more likely I injure myself, right? So a big part of this practice is just this kind of repeated practice. I'm kind of used to it. I don't know where you're going with this, Steve, but I'm kind of used to it. It makes some kind of sense.
Actually helps to try and put myself in an unbalanced, put the hip out there slowly.
And just commit the hip. Just place the hip, and then your body will follow it.
Right. There's a sense of that time when you know you're falling.
Correct.
And before you're committed to anything,
right,
there's the fear that comes up. I'm falling.
Yes. Yeah.
So I guess I'm trying to put myself in that unbalanced.
And at that moment, I want people to notice, what do I do there? Is there anxiety? Is there tightness? Is there both? Is there, an attempt to overly control it? instead of say, hey, I'm in. You know, this is where I am. You know? Often people that are there, if we pause the tape, you know, we can see, well, this person's gonna fall. Like they're past the point of no return. But then they fight. They reach, they brace, they stiffen. And this is what increases the incidence of breaking the finger, breaking the wrist, jamming the elbow, hurting the shoulder, etc. Besides the fall itself, right? And that failure to recognize that, hey, this is happening. Like I didn't want it to happen, but it's happening. So let me go with it, which is a very Tai Chi idea. Let me just go with it in a relaxed, soft, supple, familiar way, so I can reduce the implications of this. Did I want to fall? No. I was planning to push that guy, but he got me. I didn't want to, but here I am. And often people will resist after the point that they should have sensed that it's foregone, and now you go with what's happening.
Okay.
I remember I was I was competing in Taipei, and I had this big plan. I'm gonna send this dude flying, like just flying, and I'm like suckering him in because I'm way smarter than him, and I got a 5-step plan that it's got 2 fake moves, and I could see him falling for it, you know, like he's and then I'm going. Right? I was like, what was I saying about being smarter, right? And there's this moment where I have it all in my head. He's doing this, I'm setting him up, I'm making him think that, I'm baiting him with that, it's going to plan, but then no. And I could feel my feet start to move, you know. And next thing you know, my hips are 7.5 feet in the air, 8 feet in the air. My feet are 9.5 feet in the air, and like I'm just going, that's it. But the moment I felt it, I was like, huh, and then I enjoyed the whole ride. Yeah, I didn't fight it. There was a, this is not what I thought. I thought I was going to checkmate you any moment, you know, like, but then I just enjoyed it. I didn't fight through some part of it, and it was a fun ride. Like, good for him, man. That was amazing, you know. And then, you know, afterwards, I'll plan to do it better next time, and what can I, you know. But in that moment, I don't want to be reaching for something that's not for me. Just I'm going with this. No, randomly, just it was just this kind of like that, you know, but from way up in the air. So yeah, it was huge fun. Yeah. And you know, so that kind of attitude will manifest in the body, right? If I have this attitude of I'm enjoying, well, I'm relaxed, and the body relaxes. Yeah. Is everybody good so far? So the next thing I want you to do is, as the butt goes, the breath leaves. So you should probably feel the change here. The breath leaves. So I want to, let's say, exaggerate that, or go with that, or similarly tighten the abs. Right? So that, let's see if I have an example here. So that's my butt or my hips, right? Like a pivot point, right? So my legs go down, and then, you know, then my butt goes down, that's the breath, and then my back does that, which would hurt. Agreed? Mm-hmm. So this is painful. And if I kept doing that to the book, it would be painful to the book. We'd have a worn book, right? No big deal, it's a book, but we're talking about your spine, your back, the back of your head. Whereas if at the moment that my butt goes down, the breath goes out, I crunch, that's a different shape, right? I'm the feet of a rocking chair. So now that force rolls through the body a little bit, instead of, you know, getting here and then just that, you know. And I even held my head up. I didn't want to demonstrate it, but my head might be along for the ride. So if we're just thinking the breath leaves, crunch the abs. It's just for a moment, and your shoulders will find the ground, but they'll be at a different time than your hips. Yeah? And again, we're not talking about, how to do a certain role. This is just helping you feel, let's say, psychologically comfortable with the idea of suddenly meeting the ground. Yep.
Happens more at my house than I can even tell you.
Yeah.
Like literally, like once or twice a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like toys or
Yeah.
something.
Oh yeah. Toys, toys,
Yep.
something like.
Every once in a while, it's Amy tripping you.
Yeah. Or I'm like walking around in the dark like a dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel okay? Still doing this much? See if you can feel that you have the butt touches, the breath leaves, the abs crunch, which you could think of as like helping more of the breath leave, Yeah. So what I don't want you to do is like tighten the shoulders, reach the chest forward, and like try and make a curve. Just focus here, which sounds like the internal arch. It's like this sounds like, keep your focus here. So even though that happens, the cause is here. So exhale, crunch, and this happens. I don't try and reach these. Yeah. And you're gonna be as round as you get, depending on your shape and your tension levels. Yeah, nice. So ultimately what we'd like to see is as you come down, and I just took the momentum out if I didn't want to in that case. So as I come down and my butt hits, the breath goes out, the abs crunch, that my shoulders touch the ground and a lot of the rest of my back is not touching the ground at that moment, like a rocking chair, right? So and that's a different pace than kind of, which is also louder, right? So one way you can tune into it is the volume of the motion. So I just commit, that reminds me to breathe, I crunch, and then I kind of notice that I rolled. So there's kind of a moment that your belt is in the air, or at least your butt or your hips, or maybe your kidneys. It really depends on your shape and how much momentum. And then maybe you roll a couple of times, and that's fine. And there's things you can learn about your tongue and where your head goes and where your hands go if you're trying to do a particular role, but we're not trying to get you to go to a certain place or do a certain style of role or anything. I just want you to get from vertical to horizontal safely, and I want you to do it in a way that we're not increasing fear and anxiety, we're reducing it. You may already at this point, for example, Harry, think, well, when we started this 15 minutes ago, there's some anxiety about really, like, I'm like 50, you're gonna make me fall. But then you've done it 30 times and you're probably just like, I don't know if I wanna do this all day, like, because of the squatting, like there's some work to get up, but I don't really mind going down. Just and if you can get there, you're much less likely in that moment to try and fight the thing. Just, this is happening, right?
Yeah, getting down is fun if you do it the right way.
Yeah.
I think with the right intention all the time,
Yeah.
you can do it. And I try to tell people this, and it's hard to get a grip on.
Yeah.
Sometimes, what do you mean?
Well, I used to tell my Aikido teacher, like, hey man, I'm loving these rolls and I'm ready to roll 500 times. Problem is I can only get up 100 times, so, and they always become in a pair, you have to do, so, like I could definitely take the fall out, but it takes something out of you to keep getting up, Jack LaLanne said, if you look at how a person gets up, you can see the state of their health. you know, and just what, you know, to what extent is it an old man getting up? To what extent are they using every bit of support to get up? How loud? How much thinking do they do before? Okay, you know, or do you just get up, right?
Yeah.
And that so I learned that from my teacher about Jack, and I made a study of it for years and I followed up. So this is reasons people don't get erect following a fall, right? Or upright or whatever. Nervous system issue, right? So concussion, broke your back, right? Paralyzed, you know, something along those lines. Shock, which doesn't necessarily mean medical shock, but it could be the disoriented, like what even just, I was just punching somebody and then where am I? You know, that kind of thing. Dizziness, so your equilibrium's off, so you might even be physically trying to get up, like, but you appear to be drunk or something and you don't have the alignment. And then 4 is lower limb injury, right? So you fall and you hurt your knee, right? And so you want to get up, your head's fine, they're still fighting you and so forth, but you just don't have the mechanics for doing it. And these are the things that we want to avoid, right? So I want to avoid that spine smashing flat instead of receiving a roll, right? Like a rocking chair, the floor receives a rocking chair. But if you just put a 4-legged chair down, you're striking the floor, just even with the weight of the chair. But a rocking chair, you probably imagine is like massaging the floor. Your floor is like, hey, I'm so glad you guys have a rock. You know, it's right. Like it's a different relationship, and the rocking chair weighs the same as the other chair. You know, shock. Some of that shock is just the what even happened kind of thing, and some of that gets addressed just by doing this kind of practice. I don't mean medical shock, right? But this kind of practice, you're like, oh, I'm kind of used to this. Like, oh, okay, I get it. I see how I turned when it happened, and I know where my parts are and how to self-assess, right?
You're blindsided,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't see it coming.
Yeah.
Somebody hits you and
Right.
you down the ground and go,
Mm-hmm.
what?
Yeah. And so something that we want to just do is after the roll, just kind of check in on, you know, do you feel your parts? You know, it's not going to happen here, I think, right? We're being safe and slow and everything. But can you feel your toes? Can you feel your teeth with your tongue? Can you move your head? Does your vision look cloudy or sharp or narrow, that kind of a
Hey,
thing?
you still play the piano.
Yeah, right. Well, I couldn't before, but thanks. And then, you know, are you dizzy, right? And that's usually something you start to assess, you know, once you start moving. Like I felt fine, and then, okay, okay.
And you don't even know you hit your head.
Yeah, and I need a moment here, you know. And so I don't like somebody to hurry like through this position, because then they find out, right, that they shouldn't have been, right? And you know, in that point, they'll probably reach. Like I reached with my upper arm, and that's, you know, you heard something else. So just being aware of those is a helpful self-assessment once you are down. Maybe you can't do that assessment, you know, very comprehensively if you're in a fight and it's just, hey, I gotta get up because the guy's coming at me. Like, I get it, but just as a bit of practice, like to be able to check in, I think it's a helpful thing. So try and put it all together another time or two, and then we'll move on. You can try and be aware of what your head does, where your tongue is, but we're not getting launched on the ground, and we're not doing this with an awful lot of momentum, so I'm not going to continue and talk about everything in terms of the head and the hands, but I wanted to give you a little primer here.